Kenneth, thank you so much for speaking to NAMPA News. What can we say, standing currently here in the Divundu region of all places, working at the workshop on the poisoning and how can I say, wildlife action group. A little bit about Namibia, the demographics, and also perhaps about the conservancies.
Yeah. Thank you, Francois. Namibia is doing very well when it comes to conservation. We have about 40 plus percentage of the total land surface under some form of conservation management. This is all due to progressive policies and plans and legislation Namibian government put forward after independence to promote wildlife as a form of land use. We have about 22 and more protected areas. Those are formally protected national parks. And then we have 80 plus communal area conservancies, and then more privately owned land that is under some form of wildlife management, and that brings the total land surface under conservation management to 45 plus percentage. So we have these Namibians all working towards sustainable land management, deriving benefits directly from the land and the wildlife, and in so doing looking after the wildlife and its resources.
I mean, I'm glad you're saying looking after this wildlife, but unfortunately there is a small part of a small section of this population poisoning animals, and hence this workshop that we currently attending here in the Divundu. The importance of such a workshop to you?
Francois, this workshop is very important. It brings different stakeholders together, stakeholders that has got some say and control or oversight over how pesticides mostly and other forms of poisons are being used, regulated and accessed in the country. So the idea is to bring those guys together to raise the important issue of how wrong use of poison can have negative effect on the environment and people's health, and to raise this and then work with these different stakeholders so we can jointly come up with proposals that we can try and implement to address the problems we are facing with wrong use of poison. People use poison for various reasons. Some people use poison to address human-wildlife conflict. Sometimes they want to get rid of mostly predatory species that maybe prey on their livestock, so they think the best way to do that is to use poison that is illegally obtained or legally obtained, but used wrongly to address the human-wildlife conflict issues. Some people are using poison to try and get rid of things like the vultures that can give away their positions or where the poaching incident happened. So they lace the bodies of the poached animals with poison, and once vultures and scavenging species come down, they feed on those carcasses and they die on the spot, and nobody will find out about the poaching incident. Those are the reasons or intentions people use to poison for.
Kenneth, a last question from NAMPA News. Laws and policies seems lacking when it comes to the control of poison, be it now manufacturing, transporting, marketing, or even the using. Are there any solutions or remedies to address the lack of these policies?
Thank you, Francois. I think we have laws and policies in place. I think the question is whether those laws and policies are being fully implemented to address the issue of poisoning. So one needs to revisit all these laws and see, sometimes maybe laws may be absolute. We can then revise these laws and make them relevant to the issues that are happening and make those laws current so they can respond to the problems. We have the Nature Conservation Ordinance of 1974. It tells us how to conserve and how to manage wildlife resources. Any use of poison to kill wildlife resources is against the law. So the laws are there. It's just a matter of fully implementing them, revisiting those laws, and also to bring different government agencies that are responsible for this implementation of these laws together so they can sit around the same table and then identify where the gaps are and then fill those gaps. So the idea of bringing government authorities together to revisit the laws and then to fully implement these laws and then bring the issue of this wildlife crime, because poisoning wildlife is a crime, to bring these issues to the levels of the prosecutors and the magistrates so they can also have better understanding of this, because they can help us to implement the laws that are currently in place. I think that's the way forward that I would propose for us to really address this issue of poisoning of wildlife.